Does Balmora feel like home to you too? And if it does, why? It's not the biggest city in Morrowind and the architecture is pretty simple compared to a lot of other places. I think part of it is the location. You can easily find Seydanin or Vivek on the map, but Balmora feels different. That meme I found on Reddit completely stole my heart because it perfectly shows how I feel about this place. It's the kind of place you return to without even thinking about it. A place that makes you feel calm, peaceful and safe. So today I want to talk about that. Why does Balmora feel like home for so many of us? Let's start from the beginning, from the moment we actually find out about Balmora. We first hear about it during our very first quest when we were told to deliver a package to Caius. The NPCs suggest using a seed strider to get there, but you can also just walk. Of course, I was really curious about the path from Seydanin to Balmora. It sounded complicated, a bit dangerous, and honestly, as a real adventurer, I wanted to make that journey memorable. And that road to Balmora is something special. You start in the swampy area around Seydanin with that heavy, gloomy atmosphere. Then you move through a beautiful path with giant mushrooms and all kinds of strange plants near Pelagiat. After that, everything turns rough and rocky with high mountains around you that can feel overwhelming. Finally, you finish the journey by crossing the Odai River and stepping into Balmora. I've walked that path so many times I can picture it clearly in my head. Do you love that road as much as I do? To be honest, I wasn't very impressed when I first saw Balmora. The city looked kind of raw. Not many plants, not many trees except near the Hlalo Council Manor and a few spots around the edges of the city. The buildings weren't colorful or fancy, and at first everything looked a bit too similar. I even felt slightly lost because navigating the city wasn't easy for me back then. But to be fair, at that point I hadn't seen Vivek yet, so I didn't know what confusing really meant. But you know what? That feeling disappeared pretty quickly. After doing a few quests for Ajira and the Mages Guild, Balmora started to feel like home. The city turned out to be surprisingly easy to navigate. You quickly learn who lives where the shops are, where the taverns are, and where all the guilds are. And after a while, you don't just understand the layout, you start making your own shortcuts. I even started to love the overall vibe of the city. The architecture might be simple and not very eye-catching, but it's consistent. Everything fits together. There is no chaos. The river running through the city gives it a calm, peaceful feeling, and little by little, everything starts to feel familiar. It's kind of like an old apartment or a childhood street. Maybe it's not beautiful in a traditional way, but it's yours. It gives you a feeling of stability, routine, and familiarity, a place to come back to when everything else feels strange. When you look closely at how the city is structured, you can see how organized it is. The buildings aren't randomly placed at strange angles. Most of them are lined up neatly, almost parallel to each other. Bridges connect both sides in a practical way, not just for decoration. It feels like the people who live here enjoy a simple, normal life without too much drama. I really like the quest for the pillow lady, just helping her with the rat problem. You can also let her know what happened to a pillow shipment if you find direct shipment far to the north. These aren't epic tales, but they feel more like everyday interactions, and that's comforting. Home isn't where legends are born. Home is where people complain about work and ask you for small favors. Even if you look into the different buildings in Balmora, including guilds, shops, and houses, most of them are pretty modest. They're not fancy, but that actually makes them feel normal. Spaces that feel like they're meant to be used, not admired. I definitely prefer practical solutions in a place I live rather than something fancy and stylish but annoying to actually use. The interiors in Balmora give me that feeling of comfort and simplicity. So Balmora feels calm, but if you want a bit of fun, there are 4 taverns waiting for you when you feel like having a wild night. 2 of them even have stages, so maybe karaoke is something the Balmora folk enjoy. 4 taverns is actually a lot for a city of this size, so I guess the people here know how to have fun too. There are also so many memorable NPCs in Balmora. We've got Caius with his unforgettable silhouette, sweet but sneaky Ajira, and of course other characters like Hul, the Pillow Lady, Fast Eddie, and many more. They're the kind of NPCs you don't just forget. There are also plenty of shops, which makes Balmora the perfect hub to return to. It's a great place to drop off your stuff, sell your loot, rest for a bit, and plan your next move. My base is actually here in the Mages Guild. It was the first guild I joined, and honestly, it's the place that really taught me how the world of Morrowind works, mostly thanks to those simple quests quests for Ajira. Oh, and that's actually another important part of the Balmora experience. It's the place where your character really starts to take shape. There are many guilds here you can join, and the game even suggests doing that to gain some experience. These places give you structure. They give you purpose without pressure. You're not saving the world here. You're learning, training, and growing. Coming back to these familiar spaces after a dangerous trip into the Ashlands feels like returning to a warm room after a long, exhausting day. You can spend hours here without advancing the main quest at all, and the game doesn't punish you for it. I'd even say it encourages you. While doing different quests, you stumble across interesting caves and tombs with crazy loot, so at some point you stop worrying about what Caius wants. You can start living like a real adventurer. And of course, after playing for a while, you realize you need somewhere to store your things, especially if you're the type who likes collecting expensive and fancy loot. In my case, let's just say my inner laziness won, so I picked the most convenient option. First, I used every container in the Balmora Mages Guild, and then I just started dropping things on the floor. Yes, I have my mark spell set here. For me, it's also convenient because all the merchants I need are close by. Inside the Mages Guild, you've got Ajira the Alchemist and Galbadir the Enchanter, so you can already sell a lot of items right there. When you step outside, there's an armorer directly in front of you, a bookseller just a bit to the right, and another alchemist up in the highest district of the city. Yes, that last one is the furthest away, but let's be honest, it's still really close. There are plenty more merchants in Balmora, of course, but these 5 are enough for me to buy and sell everything I usually need, like preparing for the next adventure into the wild. Of course, sometimes you might need a specific item for a quest, like a rare book from Jabasha in Vivek. I'm curious, where do you keep your mark spell? Do you have favorite merchants too? I picked mine mostly because of how conveniently they're placed, but over time, I definitely formed a bond with them. Visiting them now just feels nostalgic. And even though I'm playing Morrowind for the first time after spending so many hours in the game, I already get that feeling. It's not common to feel nostalgic about something in a game you're playing for the first time. That kind of feeling usually builds over time when you think back to a game you played years ago, right? But in Morrowind, even the merchants I visit regularly already feel special to me. I especially love going to the armor shop because I'm always curious to see if the merchant will actually wear the armor I sell him. He's had so many different outfits over time, and I'm really wondering what his final look will be when I finish the game. I also love Balmora as a fast travel hub. You can use the Mages Guild teleport to reach different places. I use all of them, but most often I go to Sadrith Mora. As a Telvanni member, I got a lot of quests there, and from Sadrith Mora you can travel to several Telvanni towns and to Dagonfall. On top of that, the Silk Strider in Balmora can take you to Aldrun, Saidanin, Suran, and Vivek. From Aldrun you can then travel to Nisus. Using all these routes with teleport and the Silk Strider, you can get around most of the map pretty easily. Of course, other cities and towns have their own travel options that I use from time to time, but the ones I mentioned are my basics and the routes I rely on all the time. What about you? Which place do you use as your main travel hub? There are probably more efficient options, but I learned how to move around the world from Balmora, grew attached to it, and now the idea of changing my main hub just feels strange. If you know a place that is actually the most convenient to set as a base, let me know, I'm really curious about that. So Balmora probably feels like home because it's where we learn how Morrowind actually works. It's the first real city you spend time in, and after a few hours of adventuring in the wild, you can't wait to come back. It's where you store your items, train your skills, recover between journeys, and reflect when things go wrong. It becomes your safe place, and that's the real magic. Home isn't always where you start. Sometimes it's where your experiences quietly pile up over time. So yeah, eventually Balmora stopped being just a city and became my city. I just love walking around it. Balmora isn't noisy or overwhelming. It comes quietly in the background. You hear the sound of the Silk Strider, the river flowing through the city, and the scripts wandering around. I know scripts aren't normally there, but a few appeared for me while I was waiting to change the weather or time of day, and now they are part of the nostalgia I feel when I think of Balmora. Besides that, I also love visiting Ajira just to see her again. Every time I do, she reminds me of her quest, how tricky she was, and how well those quests introduced me to exploration and the world itself. And like I mentioned before, Balmora already feels nostalgic for me during my first playthrough, so I can only imagine how strong that feeling feel must be for those of you who played it 20 years ago. There is something incredibly calming about revisiting locations and hearing sounds from games we played years ago. I feel the same way with other games from my childhood like Diablo 2, Oblivion or Heroes 3. The moment the music or ambient sounds kick in, it just takes you right back. So what about you? Does Balmora feel like home to you too? Is it your main hub or do you prefer a different place and why? I'm really curious about your experience. Which spot do you think is the most convenient as a base for storing your items and traveling around the world efficiently? Oh, and I've got some big news. New year, new resolutions, right? I've set up a Discord server where we can share more about our Morrowind adventures. There is even a special nostalgia corner for other retro games. There is also a spot where you can drop suggestions for my content like video ideas or upgrades for the server. I really want us to build a fun, cool and interesting space together. Over the past year, I've loved chatting with so many of you in the comments and now I thought, why not take our conversations to the next level? If you're interested, you can find the link in the video description or the channel description. I hope you enjoyed the video. Until next time, thanks for watching.